So our last technique of integration, advanced technique, is called integration by partial fractions. So again, before we try to integrate, we try to create our fraction into its partial components. That's why it's called partial fractions. So from a complicated type of fraction, you're going to try to resolve it into its different components. So probably one way of understanding this one is, for example, you're going to have 1 over x plus, let's say 2 over x squared. Bro, nana, diba? Then the answer for this one is x squared plus 2x all over x cubed, diba? Let's say mo na siya ang answer niya. So the partial fraction method is that you are given this complicated fraction, and then our aim in partial fraction is to resolve it back into its different components. Bali, mo backtrack ta going to its specific fractions before nahimo siyang inana nga particular fraction. So meaning ana, coming from this complicated fraction, we're going to have this individual components. That's why it's called partial fractions, diba? Partial decomposition of your fraction. So in most cases, in you know that you have to deal with partial fractions is that when the numerator, so let's say this is the function of x to the power of m, then let's say another function in the denominator to the power of n. So as long as the numerator is less than the denominator, the exponent or the degree in the numerator is lesser than the denominator, so you have to resolve it into partial fractions. So otherwise, if it's greater, diba? As what we have mentioned before, you have to use long division in its simplification process. So duha na siya kabuok. So if the degree in the numerator is lesser than the denominator, meaning you have to use partial fractions. On the other hand, you have to use long division if it's the other way around. So I think that's what you have to observe in your different integrands nga fractions. So in partial fractions, you only have to observe 4 different types of factors. So probably before you go into these 4, what you have to do first in the denominator is you have to simplify it, or let's say make it into its several factor components. So maraming mag-algebra kadang, let's say you have this one, maraming mag-algebra. Sa mga topic ang sa algebra, let's say you have this one, 4x plus 4 ana. Then you have to make it as its different factors. So may mo siyang x plus 2 times x plus 2. Muna siya yung button sa denominator most of the time. Because that will be helpful for you later on once you determine the different factors in the denominator. Alright, so we have 4 different types of factors in the denominator. The first one is what we call as the distinct linear factor. So meaning it's distinct, meaning the factors are different. So meaning it could be x plus 2. So you could have several distinct linear factors, but as long as it's different from each other. So for example, this one is distinct linear. The other one is also a distinct linear. So if you have a distinct linear factor, you're going to use this partial fraction decomposition. Diba? So that would be the unknown a all over the specific linear factor that you're going to have in your denominator. So in this case, let's say, kaya siyang example, you're going to have it as a over x plus 2. Then again, since you have another linear factor, plus b all over x plus 3. So marginana siya pagkasabuta sa inyong mga partial fraction decomposition. So the next one is we have a repeated linear factor. So meaning the binomial is repeating, di ba? So let's say you have x plus 1, sorry, let's say x plus 1 cube. So upon application, you have a repeating linear factor. So you have a over x plus 1, sorry, b over x plus 1 squared. So notice that we have to keep on ascending up until we reach the certain exponent squared. And lastly would be plus c all over x plus 1 cube. Okay, so that's for distinct linear factors and repeated linear factors. So the other two are what we call as quadratic factors. So one is distinct, the other one is repeating. So how can we say that our factor in the denominator is a quadratic factor? So for example, this one, x squared plus 4. So this one is quadratic because we cannot express it further into its several factor components. So unlike this example, x squared plus 4x plus 4, so even though that is quadratic, we can still manage to make it as its individual factors nga linear, diba? So probably you can, on a final tip, you can say that it's quadratic if it's not, if you cannot integrate it anymore, or let's say decompose it into its linear factors. Okay, so another example is x squared plus 2x plus let's say 7, di ba? So this one cannot be decomposed into its individual linear factors because the last term is 7, so you only have 7 and 1. So dapat kuan siya x plus 1 times x plus 7, di ba? But the middle term is 2x. So you cannot um, make it into its individual components nga x plus 1, x plus 7. Okay, so we have here the term in the partial fraction decomposition, ax plus b over the specific distinct quadratic factor you're going to have. So same goes for the linear factor. You also have the repeated one. So you have to repeat itself until you reach the specific degree of the quadratic factor. So daghan kayo, marag information overload kayo. Okay, so anyway, for you to appreciate the example, so let's try to solve these items. So in my previous class, I just told them to solve number 3 and number 4 on their own, but I presented them with the different partial fractions na pwede siya makuha. So again, notice in the given equations, it's always that the numerator is lesser than the denominator. So 1 lesser than 2, 3 lesser than 4, 2 is lesser than 3, and then 3 is lesser than 5. So we have to use partial fractions in this particular integral. So let's try number 1 first. So again, probably the first step that you need to do is to try to decompose first the denominator into its individual factors. So this one can be expressed as, of course, we can see that it's 6 and then 5x. So we can express it as x plus 2, then x plus 3. Diba? So pwede ra siya, diba? So meaning we have two distinct linear factors. Distinct linear factor number 1, distinct linear factor number 2. So at this point, just let's try to ignore first or remove first the integral symbol because we're trying to focus on the partial decomposition process. So we have to apply the partial fraction later on. I mean the integral later on once we have obtained the partial fraction na decomposed na. Okay, so writing the original equation first, 2x plus 1. Then instead of x squared plus 5x plus 6, you have to write it as its distinct linear factors. X plus 2 and then x plus 3. And then again, you have to apply now on the right side the different partial fractions according to what type of factor you're going to have in the denominator. So since it's distinct linear factor, so you have to start off with a all over x plus 2 and then plus b oh kung tarongo na all over x plus 3. So of course we don't want to deal with a lot with fractions all the time, so we have to multiply this one with the LCD or just multiply it with the denominator on the left side. So x plus 2 times x plus 3. And this would give us 2x plus 11 is equal to a times x plus 3. So I hope you're able to follow why it's like that, plus b times x plus 2. Alright? So once you have this one, the next step would be depending on the situation. So depending on if which of the methods that I'm going to present to you is applicable to the situation given. So again, the next step will be for us to obtain the value of A and then the value of B. Because our purpose later on will be to convert this, again, will be to convert this particular fraction into its individual components, di ba? So muna siya atong answer later on and muna siya atong integrate after obtaining the values for A and B. So again, going back to the discussion, so we have to solve for A and B. So there are two methods. So one method is through elimination. The second method is by equating coefficients. So of course, the two types of method in solving the variables have its advantages and disadvantages. So for elimination, most probably it can only be applied most likely in linear factors. So most likely dili siya applicable sa quadratic. But again, usually in linear factors from 2 to 3 unknown variables. So for equating coefficients, so it may be 3 or more, but the disadvantage of this one is that it's a long process and might probably you have to um, know how to use matrix. Okay, probably once you reach 5 equations or 5 unknowns, 6 unknowns, that's the time that you're going to use matrix to solve for your unknowns. So better. So for me, equating coefficients is better for larger amounts of, or let's say, many unknowns. Elimination disadvantage is it only applies to a minimum amount of unknowns, let's say 2 to 3. So elimination is shorter in method. Equating coefficients is longer in method. So na siya yung mga na siya yung mga pros and cons for the two different solution. So of course, I'm going to show you both, di ba? So in elimination, you have to eliminate the other variable for you to be able to get the the variable of interest. So for example, if you want to get A, so you have to set a certain value of X to eliminate B. Then repeat the process. To get B, you have to set a value of X to eliminate A. So that's why it's called elimination. So setting a value of x that will eliminate the other variable and let the other variable um, be calculated. So for example, if you want to eliminate b first, so what particular value of x that you need to have for you to eliminate b? So obviously that would be -2, di ba? So at x equals -2, so you have to use the formula now, rather the equation. So 2 times -2 plus 11, then a times -2 plus 3 plus b times -2 plus 2. So obviously this one is 0 because 0 times b is 0. So you're going to have -4 plus 11 and then equals a, di ba? So -2 plus 3, that's 1. Um, 1 times a is just a. So in simplifying it, a is equal to 7. So that's the elimination method. So to get b, so you have to set another value of x to eliminate a, and that, in this case that would be -3. So you're going to have 2 times -3 plus 11 equals a times -3 plus 3, then plus b times -3 plus 2. So this one is cancelled out. You have -6 plus 11 is equal to b times -1. So we have here 5 equals -b. So b is equal to -5. So that's how you use elimination. So hopefully what will come out in the exam is an easy partial fractions. So mas dali siya, di ba? You just have to use eliminations. Elimination method. So on the other hand, in equating coefficients, so again, this is a long equation because this one has to be expanded because we need to equate coefficients on the left side and on the right side. So for you to be able to get what I'm talking about, let's just try to expand this one first. 2x plus 11 equals ax plus 3a plus bx plus 2b. So again, grouping coefficients, equating coefficients. So we have to group first ax and bx. Then group together the constants 3a and 3b. So next is we try to isolate the x variable. So a plus b times x plus 3a plus 3b. So again, it's called equating coefficients because this is what we're going to do. The coefficient of x on the left side is we're going to equate it on the coefficient on the right side of the equation. The constant on the left side, we equate it on the constant on the right side. That's it. That's why it's called equating coefficients. Okay, so for you not to be able to be confused on where you're going about with your variables, so just try to write it here as x, then this one is constant. So for x, the coefficient of x on the left side is 2. On the right side, that would be a plus b. Okay, on the constant, on the left side, that would be 11. The right side would be 3a plus 3b. So you have two different sets of equations. So two unknowns, two equations. Thus, we can solve the unknowns a and b at this point. So it could either be method of elimination coming from your algebra, or method of substitution, diba? So nevertheless, so since we're out of space, the answer would still be the same. And again, be mindful that you're not allowed to use your calculator, so you have to do the the process manually. So you cannot use mode, saan na siya sa calculator? I think it's mode 5 mangguro. Mode 5 1 na. So kanang kayo magawa sa yung calculator kanang murag bracket upon using the mode 5 or mode equation. Muna siya ang matrix actually. Yeah, calculator lang siya, di ba? But if manual, medyo taas-taas po siya nga process. Alright, so since we have now the values of a and b, the next step would obviously be to integrate the equation. So the integral of that would be 7 over, so it'd be 7 over x plus 3, and then that would be negative 5 for b, so this one is minus 5 all over x plus 2 dx. So mura na siya, di ba? The next step is to integrate. So we have the integral of 7 integral of dx over x plus 3 minus 5 integral of dx over x plus 2. So basin makalimot mo nga kani siya is just a simple version or a simple integral. So again, if you want to verify it further, x plus 3, this one is, let's say, v, x plus 2. So du is equal to dx. This one is dv is equal to dx. So this becomes the integral of du over u, di ba? This one, integral of dv over v. So meaning, puro siya ln, di ba? It will give us ln u, and this one will give us ln v. Okay, so our final answer would be 7 ln of u, so u is x plus 3, minus 5 ln of x plus 2 plus c. Alright, so muna siya inyong final answer. So questions for number 1. So taas kayo siya, no? Mo rin nakadaglangay. Ang partial fractions rin nakadaglangay. So again, this is the partial fractions, and then this is the final answer. So again, if we're trying to repeat our steps, this one is step number 1. Then step number 2 is to apply the different functions. Step number 3 would be to multiply with the LCD, which would lead us to this format. Step number 4 would be either be choosing between elimination or equating coefficients. So step number 5 is, of course, to integrate. So questions or any clarifications for item number 1? Okay, so I think there's no question. So let's proceed with number 2. So again, always try to look at the equation if it can still be factored out, or let's say simplified. Okay, so this one is cannot be simplified anymore. This one can be simplified because this one is difference of cube, but the given format for difference of cube is a minus b times a squared plus ab plus b squared, di ba? And looking at a minus b, it's different from the denominator because that's x plus 1. So meaning we have to retain the item because it cannot be simplified even further. So looking at the denominator, you have two factors, x times x plus 1 cubed. So this one is distinct linear factor. The other one is repeating or repeated linear factor to the power of 3. Okay? So to start off, again, the same process. So write the original equation with its different types of factor. So this time is, since wala mo ta nakasimplify, so copy paste at ron. X plus 1 cube. So second step is to apply the different factors according to the type of denominator that you're having. So first of all is you have a over x. So next one is b over x plus 1 plus c over x plus 1 squared, di ba? Repeating up until you reach cube, d all over x plus 1 cube. And then we multiply with the denominator on the left side to eliminate the fractions. X times x plus 1 cube. Okay, and this will give us x cubed minus 1, a times x plus 1 cube plus b times x plus 1 squared times x plus c times x plus 1 times x. Then lastly would be d just multiplied by x. Okay. So again, if we try to look at the new equation, and if you try to imagine the elimination method, so if I'm going to try to make my, let's say I'm going to eliminate b siguro, diba? Or let's say a, by giving it a value of negative 1. So if I make my x equals negative 1, so my eliminate ang a because it has x plus 1, it would make it 0. I would eliminate b as well, diba? If negative 1. And c. Yan, makuha ko sa akong value sa d. But ang problem is, how do I get the other variables? So for example, I'm now interested in finding a. So what would be the other values of x for b, c, and d? Na di na ako ma-eliminate ang a. So notice that puro siya the same as the other variable, di ba? So you can only set it once, ang inyuhang value for x. Di ba? So bali mo na siya ang downside sa kaning nga method ng kaning elimination. So we have no other choice but to use the equating coefficients method. Yeah, most probably mo na siya kung pirmi gamiton as well. So I try not to use elimination unless I see that in the equations I can easily eliminate the other variables, giving me one variable to be known. Yeah, in the next step na sad, maka-eliminate gyapon ko, but the other variable will be known na pod. Mo inana siya nga style. So probably when I encounter three or more variables, I just go directly with go on, go directly with equating coefficients. Okay, so let's try to use equating coefficients. So again, medyo taas lang dyan ang equating coefficients compared with um, kaning elimination. So equating coefficients. So again, to start off is we need to expand the equation. Expand, expand, expand before we even try to equate the coefficients. So a multiplied by, so again, if you don't know how to expand this one, so try remembering Pascal's triangle. So x cubed plus 3x squared plus 3x plus 1. Okay, so b times, so this one is x squared um, squared divided and multiplied by x pa jud. So x cubed plus 2x squared plus x. Then plus c times cx squared rather. Um, c times x squared plus x. Then you have dx. Okay, so expanding even further, you have ax cubed 3ax squared plus 3ax plus a plus bx cubed plus 2bx squared plus bx plus cx squared plus cx plus dx. So medyo taas kayo, no? So next step is we try to group together all the x cubed first. So a and then b. Then one ilain, di ba? X cubed. Plus 3ax squared. So that would be 3a. 2b. And then plus c. X squared. The next would be the x variable 3a plus bx plus b raday. So plus b plus c plus d and then x variable. So what remains is just a. Okay. So again, equating coefficients. So looking at the left side, there's no x squared, there's no x variable because of course they're equal to 0. Ba? So if you want to superemphasize that it's really 0, so you may do it this way. X cubed plus 0x squared plus 0x minus 1. So you have here the coefficient here of x cubed is 1, coefficient of x squared is 0, coefficient of x is 0, then our constant is equal to -1. Then you pair it up with the coefficients on the right side. So x cubed, x squared, x variable, and then constant. Okay, so you're going to have it as 1 is equal to a plus b. Then 0 is equal to 3a plus 2b plus c. 0 is equal to 3a plus 2b plus c plus d. Diba? And then the last one would be negative 1 is equal to a. So you have 4 different sets of equations. Okay, so we all know that a is negative 1 according to the fourth equation. So you have a bonus value na, diba? So 4 to 2, for either 4 to 1, equation 4 to 1 would give us 1 equals negative 1 plus b. So our b parameter is equal to 2. Okay, so next is using equation 3, or rather 2. So we're going to have 0 times equals 3 times negative 1 plus 2 times 2 plus c. So negative 4 plus 2, that would be 2. So c is equal to 2. Sakto ba? Di. So c is equal to negative 1. So negative 3 plus 4, that would give us 1. Then transpose 1 to the other side, that would give us negative 1. So using equation 3 now, so we have 0 equals 3 times negative 1 plus 2 times 2 plus negative 1 and then plus d. So d is equal to 2. So negative 1, 2, negative 1, and then 2. Okay, so our new equation would be negative 1 over x plus 2 all over x plus 1 minus 1 and then x plus 1 squared and then plus 2 all over x plus 1 cubed and then dx. So getting the individual integrals, you have negative integral of dx over x for the first one. The next one would be 2 integral of dx over x plus 1, then minus dx all over x plus 1 squared, and then plus integral of 2 integral of dx all over x plus 1 cubed. So again, I'm trying to verify the individual components with respect to its derivative. So this one is du over u, which will give us ln of x. This one is still the same. This becomes du over u. So u is equal to x plus 1. Du gives us dx. So this would give us du over u. And this would give us ln of x plus 1. On the right side, so it's not ln, diba? You have squared here. You also have cube on the right side. So what you need to do is you create it in an exponent manner. So u sub gyapon, but this becomes u is equal to x plus 1. Du is equal to dx. Then this becomes du over u squared. Or you can express it as u to the negative 3 du. So this would give us u to the negative 4 over negative 4. So other side, so last term, Still the same. Du is equal to dx, and then you're going to have it as u to the negative, kani siya kay 2 din siya day. Then this one should be 3. So u to the negative 3, and then du. So this would give you u to the negative 4 over negative 4. So mainana na mga solusyon, baka dili kay shortcut, diba? Kana na verification. So negative ln of x plus 2 ln of x plus 1, and then minus. So instead of minus, this becomes plus because plus, rather minus and then minus, diba? So plus 1/3 of u to the power of negative 3, that would be x plus 1 to the power of negative 3. Then the fourth one would be negative 1/4 x plus 1 to the power of negative 4 plus c. And that would be your final answer. All right, so questions or clarification? So first step, second step, application of formula. Third step, multiplying by LCD, giving us this term. Fourth step is this equating coefficients. Fifth step would be integrating. All right, so if there's no question, so try to solve number 3 on your own. So in your free time na siguro. So this is distinct linear plus distinct quadratic. So if you're going to try to simplify this one, this becomes x times x squared plus 2x plus 5. So this one is distinct linear factor. This one is distinct quadratic factor. So this would give you a summary of a over x, then plus bx plus c, all over x squared plus 2x plus 5. So that's for number 3. For number 4 is you're going to have distinct linear factor. Then the other one is repeated quadratic factor. So in terms of its partial decomposition, this would become a over x minus 1, then plus bx plus c, all over x squared plus 4, and then dx plus e. So mas lisod na siya, di ba? Kaya it's 5 variables. Okay, so that's how you try to set up your partial fractions for numbers 3 and number 4. So any questions or clarifications before we end our class? Okay, question. Michaela?
Yes, sir. I-clarify lang na ko ang answer sa previous item, sir. Like,
Sige.
sa katong pwede is previous slide, sir.
Kani?
Yes, sir. Ang natingala ko, sir, ano ang integral sa u raised to the power of negative 2 kay u negative 3 over negative 3. Dili siya, sir, negative u raised to the power of negative 1 over negative 1.
Negative 1 din
And
day.
same sa
Negative
u
1 din
raised to the power of negative 3, sir.
Negative 1 din siya. Kay maglibog na ko bitaw kay nakoy klase gud nga derivative ba. sa akong architecture class, and then maglibog na ko sa derivative usahay og sa integral ana. Usahay ako siyang ma-derive rather than getting it integrated. So thank you for that one. So let's try to, so 1 and then negative 1. Then this one is 2 and then 2. So 2 and then this one is negative 1. So kani siya, pili siya wala, di ba? Na. Na sobra ka bright kay gisagol na ang kuan ang integrals and derivatives. Sige, so any other question aside from the correction that I have made sa ako ang solution? So again, for the details for the exam, I'll just post the final version on tomorrow or Friday. And then mana siya, be online on 1 p.m. so that you have time to set up your cameras, your, let's say, your table, ana. So, okay, murag, I think as far as I can remember, dapat makita ang inyong naong at the same time ang inyong kuansad, ang inyong suwatanan. Dapat papel ra and ballpen ang naa. Okay, and then I think afterwards is you have time also to upload your files. Muna na yung extra time after 4:30, and then so of course you can submit earlier if you finish early with the exam. So sa may line. So aside from the time, so for the test type, I don't know yet if it's multiple choice for the first item, and then the next one is purely problem solving. So I still have to verify that one with the instructor, with our EM coordinator. So ako tanaw na balik. So nadidiri. So it's going to be 12 items for multiple choice questions, but you have to provide solution gapon, and then 3 items for problem solving questions. And that would be 60% of the grade. So test 1 is multiple choice. So meaning you have choices that you can you have to choose from in the questions. So much better, but it's only 40% of the grade. Problem solving is you don't have any options or like choices to verify your answer, but it's 60%. So 12 items, and then this one is 3 items. So probably ang kaning 3 items sa problem solving will be the difficult items. Then this one is the easy to moderate problems. This one is the difficult problem. Or it could either be a mix, diba na? So we don't know. All right, so if you don't have any questions, so thank you again for enduring the first half of the semester. So probably by the next half, so it would be an easy journey because since we know how to integrate and mas dalian lang ang kuan. So for the camera, I don't know if it's dual or you can have it as one. So probably in my opinion, it's two if kuan jud para makita ang inyong screen and katong yung papel. Ana ba? So sige lang, I'll just try to verify it with the EM coordinator and I'll post it in the Canvas announcement if unsa man ang inyong details sa inyong midterm exam. All right, so if there's no question, so again, thank you very much for the first half of the semester. So I hope that you continue to endure the other half. So the other half is just simple because malingaw na mo sa other half kay magsige na ta og kanang drawing. All right, so thank you everyone and God bless for the exam.
Thank you,
Goodbye,
sir.
sir. God bless.